one given time, we had probably 80 renovations going on from Frederick, Maryland to Woodbridge, the Southern Maryland, Waldorf. We've done so many deals in Waldorf. So that's like a 4-hour drive in traffic, right? It just kicked our ass. So no, it's not as easy as that.
Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. I'm Jason Balen from Hard Money Bankers, and this is Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. This is the first time you're tuning in. Welcome. I promise we're going to have a lot of fun. You might even learn something. We'll keep you entertained. No problem. If you're a returning viewer, follower, listener, watcher, thanks again for all the support. We truly appreciate it. We can't do it without you. We try to bring in local guests that have a lot of experience and wisdom to share with you today. Today, we're going to introduce Brad Chandler. He's got a new podcast called How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. You might also know him as one of the co-founders of Express Home Buyers. He's down the road from us, maybe 45 minutes as well. So, yeah, in a second, we're going to introduce Brad to everybody.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be exciting. We've watched his career. We've crossed paths several times in the Baltimore metro area, so it'll be exciting to have a conversation, see where he's going, what he's doing. But guys, if you get any value out of this show, we just like talking to real people doing real deals. We don't talk to gurus. We're not trying to sell you stuff. We do this because we like doing it and talking to other entrepreneurs that are actually crushing it. So if you get any value out of this, the best thing you can do for us is leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast, or better yet, share the show. That's the way we get this content out. We don't have a marketing arm behind this. Everything we do is organic. So please feel free to share the show if you get value out of this. So enough of us, and let's cut right to it. Why don't we bring Brad in?
Brad, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you guys?
Doing great. Right down the road. I'm sure you've got a rainy day, just like we've got a rainy day here. But again, just because it's raining doesn't mean we can't have fun.
You got it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you have going on these days.
Well, let's go back to 9th grade. I read a book on how to buy real estate with no money down, and just knew I always wanted to do real estate. And, over the last 22 years, I've built a company. We flipped 4,000 houses, and it primarily runs without me now. And I spend all of my time helping other entrepreneurs and folks just get over these limiting beliefs that are buried in us that some of us, like myself, didn't even know existed for 47 years. So that once you get rid of them, you can live this amazing, beautiful, successful life. So that's what I spend most of my time doing now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, let's start with Express Home Buyers, then we'll work our way up to your current venture and how satisfying that's been for you. What year did Express Home Buyers start, and how did you find your first property that you ever purchased?
Yeah, this is an interesting story. So in 2002, my son had just been born a couple months before, and an investor bought my neighbor's house in Vienna, Virginia. And I went and talked to him, and he said, I buy houses at 30% below market, fix them up and resell them. And I was like, wow, I don't remember from that book that you could do that. I thought you got rich by putting down 20%, holding the house until it paid off, right? So I was like, I'm going to do this. And that was like December of 2002. It took me 8 long months to find my first deal, and that was in July. And my first deal was actually a Veterans Administration foreclosure, where I'm pretty sure the realtor made more money than I did on it, but that's okay. And then I bought 6 houses in July and August of 2003. And I went to my boss in October of 2003. And I said, I quit. And I came home and told my wife at the time, she's like, have you lost your mind? Like, we have a newborn son and I have 2 kids. Like, what do you think? And I was like, it'll be fine. And here we are 22 years later, and it was all fine.
Yeah, no, that's the scary thing. Maybe that's one of those limiting beliefs that you're alluding to during the open. But I know for me anyway, it took us a long time to quit the fire department, because even though you have success, like, you get scared to step out and do it. I mean, how many houses did you guys flip, or you have flipped since you started Express Home Buyers?
4,000. I mean, we've stopped. We're probably, I've been saying 4,000 now for like 2.5 years. So somewhere in the 4,000 to 4,500 range.
Right. And to think about that, if we all look back and be like, oh, hey, Brad, when you started in 2002, if you're like, yeah, I'm going to bet that I'll flip 5,000 houses over the next 20 something years. I mean, would you have taken that bet?
Probably, but I wouldn't have probably bet a lot.
Okay, that's fair. That is a fair statement. That's a fair statement. No, it's wild to see, and it's awesome to follow that, people can have massive success and go down that road. So after you did your first deal, like how long did it take to start to scale and put employees in place? Like, were you guys always wholesaling? Were you fixing and flipping, renting, or were you doing a little bit of everything?
So in those 8 long months, Ian, then I was going to these RIA meetings. They didn't have meetups. I was seeing all these people hold up these checks, and I just kept getting more and more persistent. Instead of giving up, Jack Canfield went to 141 publishers before they accepted his Chicken Soul for the Soup book. So I was just like, I can't give up. I can't give up. I can't give up. So I thought back in the day that wholesaling was for the less sophisticated, the person with no credit, the person who had no money. And back then it was like, if you're lucky to make you're lucky if you make a $5,000 wholesale fee. So I'm like, I'm the sophisticated guy. I've got my MBA. I don't have any money, but I got great credit. So I'm not going to be the wholesaler. So from 2003 to 2017, we basically flipped every single house, rehabbed from $5,000 to probably $250,000. And then in 2017, we're like, let's try this wholesaling thing. And in 2017, we probably wholesaled like 170 houses, didn't buy one house. And then we started to look at, we've got this massive overhead and we're flipping these things to other investors and they're going and making like another 80, 90, 100 grand. So we started to shift. And since then now we've kind of a hybrid. We'll look at it and we'll be like, do we want to invest in it or do we not want to invest in it?
So for a real estate investor, maybe wholesaler that's just starting out and maybe they've done a deal here and a deal there, it's hard to fathom those kind of numbers just because they're so big. And obviously just like anything else, you could be successful by doing one deal a month, right? Like you don't have to do tons and tons of deals, right? You can, I'm sure you can attest as doing more deals potentially turns into more headaches, more staff, more management, more upfront dollars and spending. Do you feel that the scaling machine for real estate investing or wholesaling in general is as easy as, hey, I figured this out. I'm able to do a few deals a month. Now I can just throw marketing dollars at this? Or is it a lot more complex than that?
Jason, there's nothing easy in business. There is nothing easy in business. And you guys have probably figured that out. I can remember my partner, Judd, saying years ago, renovating 5 houses compared to 1 isn't 5 times as hard. It's like 500 times as hard. The renovation part is the easiest or the hardest part of the business by far. It's so freaking hard. And we lost millions probably doing, at one given time, we had probably 80 renovations going on from Frederick, Maryland to Woodbridge, the Southern Maryland, Waldorf. We've done so many deals in Waldorf. So that's like a 4-hour drive in traffic, right? It just kicked our ass. So no, it's not as easy as that. Wholesaling would be more easy if you could lock in wholesaling and then have something to train salespeople, train disposition people, and then you could create, the marketing machine and just turn that dial.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. I know we did. I'm sure Jason did as a lender is like, oh, I had success, immediate scale. And then it's like, dude, you don't realize like all the infrastructure. And as you start to scale, like, hey, you need an employee or you need this or you need that. And just because you're doing more deals doesn't mean you're making more money. I mean, that's a common misconception in business, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, I just had a conversation with a dear friend, and I was talking about how someone was making so much money, and he's like, "Do you realize how much debt they have?" So no, I keep getting fooled over and over again, but don't believe because you see big numbers or someone tells you something, until you see their P&L and their bottom line, you just can't, you just don't know for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we can all attest to that. And, sometimes more isn't better. There's a lot of different industries and businesses where, they've hit economy of scale and maybe they don't want to do anymore. I mean, we've had our $50 million deployed number for the last 6-7 years inside our lending company. And that's kind of our sweet spot. That's where we want to be. I'm not looking to do more and more and more and more top line. I'm trying to do more and more and more bottom line because, doing more and more deals has more infrastructure, has more risk. There's a lot more to be played. And that's hard to understand if you're a newer real estate investor, right? Because it's, hey, look at all these deals they did. Because the metrics that most people use, including myself, is how many closed loans we did, how many purchases that did you purchase, how many properties did you wholesale, how many square feet of commercial buildings does Ian have? Like that's the metrics, not what's my bottom line profit or what percentages are my expenses, things like that. And that's really the important part. So hopefully,
but guys, there's a reason for that, and that's that. When we started this talking about limiting beliefs, the limiting belief, most people who are trying to compare, and I did that for 47 years on who's better and who's making more numbers. It's because they don't feel great about themselves inside. They may not outwardly show it, just like I didn't outwardly show it, but I had this nagging thought of I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. So I always had to do more. When you're not enough, you drink more, you eat more, you have more sex, you shop more, you gamble more. And it doesn't matter. Look at Matthew Perry, look at Prince and Michael Jackson. They had so much, but they're not with us anymore because it was never enough. They just had to get more. So you've got to look at, are you trying to, I love what you said, and kudos to you for sticking at $50 million, because instead of moving towards more, you're moving towards what you want. And that's more profitability, a better life. You've got, I think you mentioned you have 3 kids. Like that's more important than trying to get to $100 million.
Sure. What do you think the point is for somebody to understand that though? Like when is enough? When did you learn it? When did you figure it out?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question. You asked me too. So when is enough? When you can look at your life, when you can look in the mirror and say, I thought things would be different by now. If you have kids that have behavioral problems, or you've got a shitty relationship with them, or you've got, you're 50 pounds or 20 pounds overweight, or you're drinking, 6 glasses of wine a night, you've got a bad marriage, you're unhealthy, you don't go to the gym. That's a time where you might want to wake up and be like, whoa, I got all this money in the bank and I'm working really hard, but for what? For what? For me, in my story, I didn't even know there was an issue. I'm going about my life. I'm like, I've made millions. I've lost millions. I made 5 business mistakes between 2005 and 2017 that cost my partner and I $9 million, all from trying to prove my worthiness. So I thought my life was okay. Yes, I made some mistakes, but who doesn't? Yes, I smoke weed, sometimes every night, but that's not a big deal. Yes, I drink to feel comfortable, but that's not a big. And my 2 wives, I just picked the wrong wives. That's their fault, right? So I wasn't even looking, and my son had anxiety because of these deep beliefs of mine, these deep-seated misbeliefs that I had. So he had anxiety. So I was trying to get him help, and I'm on a call similar to this. And the lady's like, you blink like crazy when you talk about your childhood. You may have some unresolved childhood trauma that's creating the anxiety in your son. I think that, you can come out and work with us. And I'm like, well, no way. Like, I'm a great father. I'm a single dad. I do everything for my kid. There's no way. Now I know there was a way. So that's how it started everything. I wasn't even looking. I was trying to get my son help. And when I realized it, that's when my life changed and everything has changed.
Do you mind digging in on that a little bit? Because I'll be transparent and honest. I don't know if Jason told you, but I was a fireman for the city of Baltimore. I got some shit in my bag, as we all do. But I just finished reading The Body Keeps the Score. I'm intrigued by a lot of this trauma response stuff, probably from my childhood. And I just want to go down this road maybe a little bit. Like, what did you use to heal? Because there's multiple different ways that you can do it. Everything from natural health, breathing techniques to doing well, I don't want to call it doing drugs, being led down a path with a shaman, I guess is the right way to say it. There's a billion ways to do it. What worked for you?
What worked for me is in a 3-hour session, I had gone to therapy, individual therapy and marriage counseling for 3 decades on and off. And in 3 hours, my life changed. And what happened? This is the story of everyone's life. We had needs as children. They weren't met. And when they weren't met, we developed coping mechanisms, which are usually meetings around the events that happened to us. So this ex-Navy SEAL told me, let's go back to your childhood and look and talk about times where you had no control. Control was taken from you, or you had some type of trauma or some stressful event. So we looked into those. And then he started asking questions around, well, what did that mean? My father hitting me with a belt. my father making fun of me, my parents always fighting about money, arguing. When that happens as a child, you usually say, this is my fault. It's my fault my parents are fighting. It's my fault I'm getting hit. I deserve it. It's my fault I'm being made fun of. Because why do we do that, guys? We can control that. If it's our parents' fault, we're screwed because we're just a child. And if they're bad, then we may die. It's literally a survival thing. So I lived for 47 years with this subconscious thought of something's wrong with me. I'm bad. And when I realized it was just a story I was telling myself that actually helped me as a child. This is, if you are suffering or struggling right now and you have a symptom, drinking too much, anger management, obesity, whatever it is, listen to this. It is actually a solution. Your brain is keeping you from something that it thinks is even more painful. In my case, it was the thought that I wasn't enough. But as soon as you realize that that thought isn't true or it was made up, the symptom of whatever you've got, boom, goes away. You don't need psychedelics. You don't need antidepressant drugs. You just need to change your thinking, change your life. But most people don't know how to accurately and correctly change your thinking forever.
Yeah, that's some deep shit, man. And you know, the problem is not many people want to explore it. I mean, I'll transparently tell everyone here on this podcast that I've gone down the road a few times and then I just keep it wrapped up because, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this, is that's my superpower. Whatever that trauma was, I have it wrapped up and I'm like, all right, dude, this little trauma here is what allows me to be successful because I don't ever want to go back to that. Did you ever feel like as you're starting to release that, like you're losing your superpower?
I'm going to tell you something and then I'm going to answer that. What an amazing question. I call that the entrepreneurial myth. If you're listening to this and you're like, I've got my shit together, or I don't have my shit together, and you want to know for sure if you have these childhood programming issues, I developed a quiz just for you, just for me, because if my old self would have been listening to this, I'd be like, no, I'm good. Well, let's see if you're good. Go to bradchandler.com/quiz and take it. It will take you 3 minutes. It's just 12 questions. Click through them. And that one quiz may change your life forever. So to your question, Ian, fabulous question. People think, and out of 100 clients, I had one that really literally told me, this is why I'm not changing. Because me beating myself up and telling me I'm a piece of shit drives me to make a bunch of money. And I'm afraid that if I stop telling myself I'm no good, my business is going to go away. Let me tell you, it's just the opposite. For 47 years, I chased business and opportunities to make a bunch of money to prove my worth. In the last 3 years, since I was able to take this deep breath and say, oh my gosh, it wasn't me and I don't have to prove anything. Now my whole life is focused around how do I make an impact on my sellers, my investors, my employees, my clients. And in those 3 years, I found what my purpose was in life. And my net worth has gone up literally an X factor of any 3 years prior to that. So it's just a myth that you're living with. It's not your superpower. It may be your superpower to make money, but if you lack self-love, Ian, your relationships, if you're married, you have kids, with your health, with your business, everything is suffering to some degree because of these what you're carrying that you think is your superpower.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty powerful. It's like actually really freaking powerful. And, you know, I commend you that you have the maturity level to do it, right? You know, and even hearing you say it again, I'm like, oh, yes, dude, I got to do this. And I'm sitting here literally contemplating at the same time of like, well, what if? Because, you know, I think some of it, and, you know, you've had a lot of success. Jason's had a lot of success, and we talk about it a lot. Jason and I talk almost every day is like, we have this success and we still have the burning desire, but it's like also living comfortably with that time freedom, that mental clarity, all those different things of like, what a different world you live in. And I don't know that everybody's okay to be the normal, well, that's not normal today, but the normal person, right? Like everybody needs that drama. Everybody needs a little whatever's going on in their life. And, you know, it's interesting to see how people cope and navigate that.
Ian, let me ask you this, because you said you're willing to be vulnerable. And if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to answer. Just say next question, right? I'm interviewing you now. I got to ask this one
next
thing.
Question. No, I'm just kidding.
What is the, so you're holding something in from childhood and it's causing something negative in your life. Are you willing to share what is that one thing that is the most impactful negative thing in your life? Because I'm going to show you why it's happening and how to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, I got no problem. Those that are close to me know I come from a broken home. And, you know, my parents were going through a divorce at, you know, early teens, me and my brother were the ones that got blamed for their divorce. So we've embodied that. When something happens in my life today, it's like, all right, well, I know some other people are at fault, but F it. I'll just take the blame, put it on the broad shoulders. Let's keep moving forward, because I am a positive, happy-go-lucky dude. And I would say, giving you enough around this of what I'm comfortable sharing with on here, that's probably the number one thing is, that I got blamed for their divorce that I live with almost every day for the past, well, I'm 40 now, so almost 30 years that I've been dealing with this one concept,
So you take on everyone's problems. It sounds like
I'm a freedom fighter, 100%.
Okay. So that creates a lot of issues in someone's life. It's going to eventually catch up with you on the health side if it already hasn't. So you are doing that because you've already identified that if you go to this place that I'm the cause of my parents' divorce, I'm no good, I'm not worthy. So you're using that to hide it. But if we talked through this, you would be like, wait, is there any chance I was? Of course not. I wasn't the cause of my parents' divorce. Then you taking on everyone's things would go away. And then you could have this weight lifted off your chest. And then from that, your relationships are going to improve, your business is going to improve, your health is going to improve.
Yeah, well, and then, but there's also the hero story behind it of like, okay, well, there's no way that my mom and dad were that flawed that they ended up in that. So, and I think that's where I get lost sometimes. I cope with that, and I strive to have a good household and all these other things, probably because I'm overcompensating for this one thing, right? And I guess maybe what I'm saying to go side by side with you is that like some of the super positive stuff could also be negative response from some of these traumas that I need to figure out how to release. So
yes. And you may be saying, I'm going to do everything opposite of the way that my parents did it, so I have a good house. That was me. I never touched my kids. However, when you lack self-love, and you should go take the quiz, if you lack self-love, I don't care how good of a father you think you are, your limiting beliefs are being pushed down to your child, because if you don't feel enough and you don't have unconditional love, how can you ever teach your child to? You can't. And that's the greatest gift that anyone can give their child, is to break this multi-generational curse where it just goes from one family to the next. And how do you do that? You teach them how to love themselves unconditionally, but you have to know how to love yourself unconditionally to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's right. And guys, you probably can't tell, those that are watching, I'm like sitting here silently and still, but the heart's going like this because I know you triggered something inside of me. But I guess it's also like, the plumber's kid's a really good electrician, right? Because dad knew how to plumb. So I'm going to go learn how to electric because dad really wanted you to learn how to do electric, right? It's kind of the same thing of like, hey, this generation had this problem, so let me cope for that and make you do this next thing in your generation. And then really all you've done is just push the problem down the line.
Yep.
Yeah, that's some deep shit. I thought we were talking about real estate. What is going on?
I don't even know how to get back to the real estate topic from here.
I hijacked it, man. I needed to solve my problem.
Like a transition back.
Did you notice my energy level when you were asking me real estate related questions, as opposed to it's? And that's why God put me on this earth, is to do this work. And when you talked about not making money, when you really find your purpose, oh my gosh, like it's just lights out. It's amazing.
So over the last year or so, when you've been, 120% focused on this, the gift that you were given, how has that affected Express Home Buyers and the way that you potentially managed? I don't know if you're still involved with the management side of it, but I'm assuming you've tried to help every single employee, on and off the field at this point. So how has that impacted the company as a whole?
Yeah. So we've attracted, because I'm a completely different person. So our culture is different. It's not about like, what can we do to make more money? It's like, how can we get the little old lady who doesn't have an air condition and just can't afford it? Can we go get her an air condition? We had a house in Baltimore. We paid for the lady's relative's tombstone because she didn't have any money. So focused on making an impact, instead of trying to, I did so many silly things at Express Home Buyers. I opened the Virginia Beach market. within like 2 weeks and had an office. I signed the lease and hired 5 people when I couldn't even have my brochure boxes in the DC market filled. Like, what was I doing? Why, now I know. I was like, oh, if I can go to Virginia Beach and make $1 million there, I might be, worthy. So all of that has gone. The chaos is gone. I'm not constantly coming to the company and being like, let's do this and let's do that. Let's do this and let's do that. No, we got this plan. We're executing on it. We're bringing in more, talent. So really, it's almost changed as much as my life has changed.
When you use the word worthy, is that kind of related to ego? Would you say in that case, like, is a lot of this, either ego or status?
Yeah. So ego, one famous person said, ego is really your parents, because you'll never hear me blame a parent, just like I wouldn't blame you, Ian, or I didn't blame myself. We all are doing the best that we can. But if your kid has, anxiety or depression, or is a real, behavioral problem at school, and you want to know why, just grab your spouse and go into the bathroom and look in the mirror. You're the reason. It's not your fault, but you're the reason. So yeah, ego is the part of you that doesn't feel enough, and you're trying to step up to show, that you are enough.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'd like to go back just a little bit where you were talking about not coming to the office with a new idea every day. Do you think by, I guess, feeling that you have unconditional love, or you've changed yourself into a better human being, that now you're concentrated and hyper-focused in 1 or 2 markets, because I was just listening to Lewis Howes and Noah Kagan right before we hopped on, and they were talking about just doing one thing, doing it really, really well. That's the difference between millionaires and billionaires, is that millionaires want all these different lines open versus billionaires like one thing. We're doing one thing over and over and over again. What have you noticed that in your business? Like, has profitability gotten better as you've hyper focused now that you're not coming within all these frantic ideas?
100%. Yeah. I mean, we had just problem after problem, whether it was lawsuit or we bought 3 development deals in the summer of 2005 that cost us $3 million. And one of them took like 11 years to extricate ourselves from. So absolutely. Profitability has gone up because we've stopped making so many mistakes, and then we're not just constantly trying to do the next best thing.
What did your business partners think or say when you wanted to go in this direction?
Well, I came and sat like literally days after coming back from Utah. I sat down with him and kind of spilled the beans and told him everything. He was like, wow. He's like, this all makes sense now, because he had seen me for 15, 16, 17 years. And he's been completely supportive. We have a 21, 22 year partner, because he started with me in October of 2003. So we have an amazing relationship. So he's been supportive. Everything is as good as it's ever been. It's beautiful.
It's interesting. I like this interview and this episode because, like, you pretty much are a complete open book, and I don't feel guilty asking deep questions to you.
Yeah,
and I think that's and I think that's hard sometimes. I think a lot of folks, like you've already, opened yourself up, whenever, when you a year or 2 ago with everything, and it's just like, if this is going to work, you're going to go all in. Like Ian said, like, I want to do this, but, and we all say that, right? I want to do this, but, and you still get scared. But at this point, I'm here. Like, it is what it is. Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you want to judge me, I now because if you judge me before, I would go into like fighting mode, or I'd go into shutdown mode, or I'd have to drink or whatever. Now, if you want to judge me, I know it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with how you feel about yourself. But that goes both ways. If you're judging other people, it's the same exact thing. You have something internal. So this is true freedom, guys. Like, I'll tell you, I did a video a year ago where I said I used to ask my second ex-wife my second wife to tell me more that I was handsome and sexy, but it didn't matter how much she told me, because I felt so unworthy that it didn't matter. I could have never come on in public and said that before, because I'd have been like, oh shit, like I can't tell anyone that. Oh my God, if she tells anyone that, like, oh, now I am free to be my authentic self. This is what you get. You can like it or you can hate it. I don't care, because I'm just going to be myself. So few people, unfortunately, in this world are able to do that. And that's true freedom. Not much. $10 million won't get you that. $100 million won't get you that. The only thing that will get you that is I got my shirt that says no one can love you like you can. When you start loving yourself like the person that you deserve to love, then you get that true authenticity and freedom.
Yeah, the $10 million is just the scoreboard, and the fact that you have time freedom and don't give a crap what other people. I feel obligated not to curse in front of you for some reason on my own goddamn show. But anyway, it's like you have the $10 million. It's like, you know what? I don't care if someone thinks I fly first class, or I don't care if I fly private, or whatever it is. The fact that you're untethered to the point of like, I don't give a shit, man. Like, this is who I am. Enjoy me or not. Just, I think sometimes it gets lost with people, sometimes like me, who are very direct and to the point. People are like, oh, you don't give a shit. Yeah, but sometimes it's negative too, right? Like there's
or it comes off arrogant sometimes, or it might come off arrogant.
Or it's a complete lie, because if we were on the show 4 years ago and you said, do you care what people think? I've been like, no, but I always did care. And that's what, if you take that quiz, you'll know if you're one of those people lying about not caring, because if you lack self-love, you absolutely care what other people think.
Yeah, I'm going to take the quiz. Brad's going to text us and just be like, dude, you're just mentally, you're a mess, dude. But you know what? I know I'm at the point that I know I had the issue. It's like, what are the 7 stages of depression, or mourning, or whatever? It's like, I've gotten through denial. Now I need to get to the next step of like, let's go fix it, right? And I think a lot of time people get afraid of this topic in general. And I know I've been a part of some groups where the leader of the group was like heavy on this type of content. It is business and life are intermingled, especially as entrepreneurs, and really as employees too. That you need both sides of this. And I think sometimes it gets lost where people are like, well, I do want to concentrate on business because I want to feel like I can get to a point where I can then concentrate on this life. Like if someone's just starting out, like let's say they're early on, and like me back in 2012 when I started, and you're like, yo, dude, I know you got some problems. Like, what would you suggest? Go get the business going first? Or would you suggest, hey, like, fix yourself a little bit and you'll have way more success down the line?
No way. Don't start the business, because you're going to make a bunch of mistakes, because your inner mind's going to be controlling you. And when you jokingly said Brad's going to text me and say you're messed up, I'm going to say just the opposite. And this is a really important point. And I made it earlier, but I'm going to reiterate it. Whatever you're suffering with today, whether you drink too much, eat too much, you're depressed, you're anxious, you've got OCD, that is your body doing its job by protecting you. So no matter what you ever came to a therapist or me with, if anyone ever said, oh, you're messed up, they don't know what they're talking about. The disorder is thrown around so much. You have an attention deficit disorder. No, you don't have a disorder. There's nothing. Your brain is not out of order. Your brain is doing exactly what it should be doing. ADD, people have ADD that are all this medication. Do you know where ADD comes from? It comes from your childhood. It comes from stressful events where you check out because it's really painful. And then you never check back in because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between yesterday or 25 or 50 years ago. So whatever you've got, it's not your fault, and it can all be healed. So back to your question, people start businesses like I did because they think when they get over here and they make $10 million, they're going to get to this feeling. I'm going to show you how you can get to this feeling today. And once you're in this feeling of self-love and not beating yourself up, the chances of you getting to $10 million have just skyrocketed through the roof, because you're not doing all these silly things to try to prove your worth. You're focused on making an impact in what you want to do every day.
Speechless, dude. I'm sorry. I'm deep. I'm like literally, you're processing.
Well, because it is opposite of what a lot of people would think. What you're, like you said, because it's, hey, my issues are, let's say they're personal finance. We don't have enough money to pay your rent, mortgage, whatever it is. I need to make money, right? Then you start making money, some money, and it's like, okay, well, now I need to do this. Soon as I get to this, step, then I'll spend time on concentrating on this next thing. Then I'll spend time on working out. I'll spend time on eating healthy. I'll spend time on relationships. But, whatever that trigger is, that short-term trigger of money, that's usually what it is. And I would guess that's probably what a lot of our audiences are, right? They're real estate investors. They want to make money.
But Jason, they're in that situation likely because of everything that we're talking about. If you look at the average CEO of like a mid-level manager at Walmart and a Fortune 500 CEO, do you know how small the discrepancy is between IQ? Trauma affects everyone differently. Sometimes the person that works at a gas station has been told that they're no good and they'll never amount to anything, and they believe that. That same the neighbor of that kid that was told they were nothing, and I wasn't told that I was nothing, but I believe that. They go in the opposite direction, like, I'm going to prove myself. So if you have financial issues, it's likely because of the stories in your mind. It's not because you're not smart.
Yeah, that reminds me that Jason and I, we usually consume similar podcasts and books at the same time. We were listening to Jelly Roll over on Nelk Boys, and he talked about coming from a poor community and then his dad moving him to a community where there was nurses. He's like, oh my God, my neighbor is a nurse. And like, it gave him the self-worth to think that he could be more than just a junkie or a drug dealer or something along those lines. And
he came from a neighborhood that he said that he didn't know anybody in his entire neighborhood who had an actual real job. Like if they worked at fast food, that was like, oh, this person actually has a job.
Wow.
And it's, hey, drug dealers and all other, folks doing illegal activities. He's like, that's just what I thought we did, because that's what everybody else did.
Yeah.
And man, his story was deep. But
then I would also ask, like, those dudes, right? Like, you see the Michael Jordan, well, maybe he didn't have a horrible childhood, but like Tiger, uber successful as a result of that trauma, right? And now he has all the problems, and it's kind of what you were alluding to, is like, you can have massive success, but at some point it's going to catch you, and you're going to have issues with drugs, sex, rock and roll, money, whatever it is. Somewhere along the lines, it's going to catch you in some way, shape, or form. So
yeah, it's how do you define success? Because if you ask me for a successful person, Tiger Woods would be one of the last people. He's almost killed himself twice in the last 5 years. His childhood trauma has absolutely eaten his lunch, right? Michael Jordan 20 years ago said he was depressed. He had depression. I mean, I think I have a theory that a lot of those, and Tom Brady is the same way. And I know a lot of people would be like, no way. Who wins 6 Super Bowls and within 2 minutes of winning the Super Bowl has a video go out that he spent time and money on putting down all his naysayers? So because of this, I'm not enough. I'm going to work so hard to prove it. And that's the story of these guys.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I mean, it can happen on a low level too. I know just quitting the fire department, there was an identity crisis around that, like something I worked so hard towards or something that I've always wanted. And it's like, dude, nobody leaves the fire department to go quit and pursue an entrepreneurship type job. And it was like, I struggled straight for 10 years trying to navigate that. And, it's real shit, man. So it doesn't have to be at an insane high level. It could be just quitting your job and having the trauma around that. So
sure.
Yeah,
some heavy topics, man. Heavy topics. I love it.
Life-changing stuff.
If you're watching this, you see that we put on the screen the link to this quiz, bradchandler.com/quiz. And if you're listening to it, bradchandler.com/quiz. But definitely something that when we're done this podcast episode, I'm going to hop in and take. I'm sure Ian is as well. And definitely something that everyone else should consider.
Don't worry, Brad.
How long is the quiz? How many questions?
It's 12 questions. It's like 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
I got an accountability partner, so you will definitely see my name come through that I have to do it, because I know Jason's going to do it. He's like, yo, what'd you get? So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Dude, Brad, this has been awesome, powerful. I was running late to the podcast. Wasn't expecting this conversation. This is awesome. A question that we like to ask all our guests, like, what's one book or podcast that you have enjoyed, or one that you would suggest that everybody reads?
Well, of course, How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs, mine. No, but the book that has changed a lot of my clients' life. I've read probably 60 books in the last 3 years. I can't get enough of this stuff. It's a little pocket book called The Way to Love. That book is by Anthony DeMello. That's a showstopper. And the chapters are only 4 or 5 pages. So if you're in a relationship each night, just grab a chapter and read it with your partner and just discuss it. I mean, you talk about deep. It's some really great stuff.
Any final last words for any of our viewers?
Absolutely, man. I cannot reiterate this enough. If you're suffering or struggling with something in life, it's not your fault. It's your brain doing its job to try to avoid, because our brains want to move us from pain to pleasure. So there's something in your subconscious brain that was formed at childhood as a way to protect yourself. And whatever you're suffering with, depression, anxiety, racing mind, workaholism, addiction, it's only the only reason that's happening is because even though it's negative, it thinks it's keeping you from something even more negative. And when you do the work and you figure out that this thing you're hiding from is really not even true or that bad, then all of your symptoms poof. And it doesn't have to take years. It can take a matter of hours. So you were put on, you're a miracle, right? That egg and that sperm matching up, you're a miracle. You were put here for a massive mission. It wasn't to be suffering and struggling. I promise. You were put here to have an amazingly fulfilled life with a partner or an intimate person who you share your life with. And if you don't have that, you can do it. And this, hopefully, someone's going to listen to this podcast and their life and family is going to change forever.
Well,
hell yeah.
Well, no, that's great, and we certainly appreciate you hopping on here and spending the last 40 or so minutes with us. I think when a lot of our viewers and audience see that we interviewed Brad Chandler, they probably are going to guess that we spoke a little bit more about real estate. But this twist, I think, is definitely a good look for a lot of folks. Especially no matter what part of the real estate investing or their entrepreneurial journey that they may be in. Take the quiz, see where you're at. Work on yourself, concentrate on yourself first. One more time, what was the name of your podcast as well?
How to be happier for entrepreneurs.
How to be happier for entrepreneurs. And also go check out bradchandler.com/quiz. Brad, thank you so much for spending the last 40 minutes with us.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.